humans are always looking for a deeper meaning in life, something that no other species is looking for. Everyone is content. All the other animals are content with what they have. But humans, you could have everything you need, and you're looking for something deeper. But the further question is, how do you know when you find it? How do you know that what you've found is it? How do you know that you discovered a deeper meaning in life, that it's not just some, hocus nothingness? You think that it's a deeper meaning, and really it's nothing. How do you know when you found it?
You should feel more connected to whatever's out there.
So you're feeling it, but how do you know that those feelings are real? How do you know that this is a true discovery?
I have a friend who always says, like we'll do something, like we'll go surfing, he'll be like, Mike, man, that was the best surf session ever. And then like 2 weeks later he'll say, dude, that was incredible. The best, So it's like, okay.
Well,
From a surfing perspective, dude, that was the best.
So do tell us.
so to discover the answer to this question, we have to turn to page 244, where we're going to get into the discussion of the soul's descent into the body, and particularly a very fascinating Talmud that speaks about what happens to the soul right before it comes down. So first, this week's Parsha, it starts with with the instructions of a woman giving birth. Vayedaber Hashem al Moshe leimer, daber el bnei Yisrael leimer, isha ki sazriya v'yolda zachar. Talks about speak to the children of Israel, saying if a woman conceives and gives birth. First, it discusses the particulars for a male, and then it talks about the particulars for the female and all the laws that are associated with childbirth. But what about before the child is born? We don't see any details or stories about what happens before then. Well, luckily the Gemara comes, the tractate Nida, which speaks a lot about childbirth and analyzes these sections and topics, and presents a very fascinating dialogue of what happens to the soul before it comes down. So on page 245 or 246, where it says that Talmud Tractate Nida 30b, Dorosh Rabbi Simloi delivered this following teaching. So what does the embryo resemble when it's in its mother's womb? A light burns above its head, and it looks and sees from one end of the world to the other, as it says, then his lamp shined above my head, and by his light I walk through the darkness, and do not be astonished by this, because a person could be sleeping here, where the Gemara was written in Babylon, and could see a dream. It could see a dream in Spain. So the soul is there. It's seeing these things. It sees from one end of the world to the other end of the world, which is possible because we're still talking about the soul in its abstract state. The Gemara goes on and continues. Says, "There's no time in which a man enjoys a greater happiness than in those days." It is also taught all the Torah from the beginning to the end. For it is said, and he taught me, and said unto me, let your heart hold fast my words, keep my commandments, and live. The Talmud takes that verse and understands that to mean that it learns the entire Torah before he's even born.
That makes it a Jewish story.
As soon as it sees the light of the world, the angel approaches it, slaps it on the mouth, and causes it to forget all the Torah completely. As it is said, sin crouches at the door. As soon as the traumatic childbirth, the angel comes and hits it on the mouth, and it forgets everything. It doesn't emerge from there before it's made to take an oath, as it is said, that you make every that unto me every knee shall bow and every tongue shall swear. What is the nature of this swear, this oath that it's made to take? So to be righteous and not to be wicked. And even if the whole world tells you, oh, you're righteous, you're a good guy, don't worry about it, consider yourself wicked. So this is the story that the Talmud tells us of what happens to the soul before it comes down into this world. It learns the entire Torah, then the angel slaps it on the mouth and it forgets everything, and then right as it's entering into the world, it's made to take an oath that it's going to be righteous, it's going to do everything right, and he's not going to be wicked. So this is a very interesting perspective to what goes on in the womb. Most people think the baby is just there kicking the mommy for a little bit more when it's hungry, or stretching from its tough constraints. But the Talmud tells us that it's actually very active in there. It's studying the entire Torah, the entire time that the baby is within the womb. The 9 months of it's at this prenatal academy. It's learning the entire Torah from the beginning to the end. And when we talk about the Torah, it's learning everything. The whole idea of not just memorizing individual words, but the whole concept of what Torah is.
So I just have to ask, do you believe this literally, or do you believe it?
So we're going to talk about this Gemara and analyze it, where it's not really talking about the embryo body itself, studying and learning the Torah, but like it says, a light burns above its head, which we learn Ner Havaya Nishmas Adam, the light of man is the candle of God. The soul, the soul of man is the candle of God. The soul, as a preparation to be able to unite with the body, learns the entire Torah, and then is enclosed within the body when the baby is born, becomes alive to a whole new degree once it goes out into the air of the world. And that soul, in its descent and approach to this world, learns the entire Torah. And then right before it goes into the embryo, we're going to discuss why it has to forget it, because the blaring question right after you learn, okay, this poor baby, it learns the whole Torah, it's all set up, it knows everything, and then boom, gets a slap across the face and forgets it all.
So you're saying that before it's an embryo, it's an neshama that knows the whole Torah?
The soul studies the Torah in a soul-like way, and like it says, you could see in a dream from one end to the other. We're talking about the soul in its abstract form. It studies the whole Torah, but then it forgets it right before it's born. The question is, what's the point in learning the whole entire Torah if it's just going to forget it? I mean, why go through the whole process of learning it and forgetting it, especially since we find that forgetting Torah that you learned is something that's very sad. It's one of the practices that we are accustomed to is when a new baby is born. The Friday night after the baby is born, we do something called a Shalom Zachar, where everyone comes together and they greet the baby into the world. One of the reasons that is brought in the Code of Jewish Law for why we celebrate this first Friday night that the baby is here is to mourn with the baby over the loss of Torah that it just had.
Did not know that.
Objection.
Yeah, Your Honor.
So we already been over the terrain that many, if not all souls, recycled from previous incarnations.
I was thinking about
correct?
that
So
too.
presumably, these recycled souls have already learned the Torah a number of times.
And forgotten it.
Yeah, so why bother learning it again only to forget it again?
That's a very good question, and that's one that we have to address, because we're now further analyzing this, and we're saying that if the soul came down into this world numerous times, then it's learned it and forgot it, and then goes through its entire life, passes, and whatever happens in the afterlife is a whole nother discussion. But then in its descent, it's refreshed, it's renewed, it's coming back down into this world. Part of the process is to learn the entire Torah and then forget it. But it seems like a tremendous shanda. It's just a big waste. Why learn the whole Torah if you're going to have to forget it anyways? And we see that you learned it in the past lifetime, it didn't really work, and we have to learn it again. But if you just have to forget it over, what's the point in learning it? Why does the Talmud tell us that the soul learns the entire Torah before it comes down just to forget it a few moments later?
Sounds like it's in the learning of the Torah that something's going on, not just the possessing of the knowledge, but in the learning
I
of
mean,
the
the physical
knowledge.
process of doing it.
It seems like it. I mean, that's what it sounds like. If we're being made to do it again and again and again, there must be something in the actual act of learning.
And wouldn't your soul be like frustrated? That like, here, do it.
I just got...
Lost it. It's like, you would
just
hope
missed
so.
that.
It's got to do with this human now. It's like, oh, here we go.
So
You would hope so.
on page 247, actually we have text 3a and 3b where it talks about the custom to make this meal after the baby is born. And then in 3b, the Taz is the commentator on the Code of Jewish Law. He says the reason for this custom is because the baby is mourning over the Torah that it just forgot, as it explains in the Talmud, referencing that Talmud that we just learned together. So here we have the question: if you're just going to forget it, what's the point of learning it in the first place? And another question is, why specifically does the angel slap the child on the lip? It says it hits him on the lip and then he forgets it. What's the significance of the mouth specifically?
Also, I think of like when you blow up a balloon. When the first time you blow it up, it's hard. You got and then boom, it goes, right?
Oh, so
And then once you've done that, the next time, then it like hits easy,
You
right?
can
It's a lot
hold
easier
more.
to do it. Yes.
That's
Yeah, that's the second approach that we're going to take. After first talking about it from a legalistic point of view, the legal point of view kind of analyzes this Gemara and sees what happens to the soul right before it's born. It's made to take an oath to be a righteous person and not to be a wicked person. So how could you take an oath if you don't know what you're taking an oath to be?
or remember it. Right? This is when you're born. You take this oath.
Right before you're born,
If you
every
remember
soul
the
is
oath, it's kind of
Right before you're born, you take that oath, but at that point, you still know the Torah.
right. So
Your soul
If you
knows
don't
the
have
Torah.
legal
Seems like I
representation.
do.
I take that oath.
Never really have
It will not
It's
hold
that
up.
the angels form a court up there, and they.
Yeah, as a lawyer, I know this.
So let's see. In order to take oath, the first answer that's brought by the Chidah in text 4 on page 249 is that in order for the soul to be able to take its oath, it has to know what it's swearing about. We can see that inside. But I wanted to focus a little bit more on the psychological approach that Mike was alluding to. Are any of you familiar with Plato and the Greek philosopher who spoke about the theory of anamnesis? Anamnesis.
Is that animating?
No, it's the concept that in order to be able to learn something, in order to be able to perceive something, you have to have previously known it. Otherwise, it's impossible to come to the conclusion that this is right.
A muscle memory. So their mind has a muscle memory, and when a concept goes by, that concept will be familiar to you.
So are you talking about previously as in another life known it?
Even in Plato's theory of anamnesis, he speaks about it could be in a previous incarnation. It could be, but you have to have previously had that knowledge in order to come to the conclusion that this is the knowledge. This
So
is
knowledge is new knowledge.
This
All
is it.
knowledge is
Yeah.
known at some point, and then you're relearning it.
Does this pertain to everything learned in one's life?
So according to his theory, that yes, it's everything that a person learns is not anything new.
It's curious to me as to what about things that have never before been seen in history or in foreign history. What would that be said about that?
If time is fluid, then I would say that.
So
it's
there-
happened already.
There really isn't anything new under. There really isn't anything new under the sun. There's different inventions that can take a rock and carve it into a circle. But did a circle become just now into existence? And before then, there was no such thing as a circle. And so too with a computer. A computer is just taking RAM, hard drive, all these things that already existed, and now putting them all together that they should work in harmony. And if you dissect every single part, they all existed beforehand.
Well, like you say, energy can't be destroyed or made. It's just all
Transfer.
aspects of it. Yeah.
Transform.
That's a somewhat broad definition of knowledge.
Well, when you think about it, they're all started.
Well, I don't think that computer programming language existed in Plato's time. I think that was something that qualified as new.
So, if you really study his theory, you'll see how under his understanding or definition of learning something new, a new language or any of those things wouldn't be considered new, because you have that concept beforehand. The concept existed previously, and you had to be somewhat aware. How do you invent a computer language if you don't possess a certain knowledge right before the computer language is invented? Everything has to have already been there in order for. So this is.
You're just rearranging the parts. That's what they're.
Yeah.
Does that have anything to do with what they're studying now, genetic memory, possibly in the DNA, like a genetic memory that's passed on genetically?
It's very related, because here we're talking about specific memories being passed on. But what's interesting is that Reb Moshe ben Yisrael, who was a great philosopher in the early years of the Renaissance in Amsterdam, he says that here is one of the examples of how we find the worldly theologies are very influenced by Jewish thoughts. He says this idea that Plato has is it comes from the Gemara. It comes from this section that we were just learning. Let's go through text number 5 inside, where we'll see how this later philosopher connects the statements of the Talmud to explains them as a predecessor or what gave the inspiration for the Platonic theory. Let me give someone a chance to read. Sarah, yeah, Sarah, you want to read?
Sure. Look and see how the words of Plato are the very words of the Kabbalists. When the Talmud says, a light burns above its head, it is hinting to us that the pure soul, referenced in Scripture as the candle of God, while still entwined in its mother's womb, is granted great wisdom from God. Anything that it learns or perceives after it emerges into the world is only recalling forgotten wisdom. Plato calls this reminiscence. The Talmud brings proof from the fact that a person sleeps in Babylon and dreams of Spain. This is indeed compelling proof, for a person can only dream about matters that he thinks of during his waking hours. As Rabbi Yosef said, know that a person does not see in his dream a palm tree of gold or an elephant passing through the eye of a needle. Accordingly, If someone is in France and never saw Spain in his life, how can he see Spain in his dream? It is only that, although he has not seen it, his soul has seen it before descending into the body. Lest you ask, what is the purpose of teaching it the entire
Teaching the
Torah?
soul, right.
Regardless, everything is forgotten upon entering the world. Plato already answered that a person cannot understand something that he was never formally cognizant of, ideas and matters that he has at one time been associated with, regardless, if only by hint or fleeting thought alone can be remembered and perceived. Indeed, it will happen that with regards to those matters that he once heard or saw, even after forgetting them for many years, when he will engage with them once again, he will easily remember them and understand them. The reason why the soul forgets is because the soul is like the craftsman and the body is the tool the craftsman uses. Because the tool is not capable of handling the immense wisdom, the craftsman is forced to lose the wisdom until, with the passage of time, it becomes perfect.
So here he makes a very strong link between this Talmudic idea to the Platonic theory that in order to be able to learn something, it gives you an extra boost if you've learned it before, even if you forgot it, and explains the reason why we had to forget it is because here we have an advanced soul. It's new, but it's a full soul, and it's coming into a newborn baby. Just like you need to build up your muscles to be able to roll over and to be able to do everything you need to do as a human being, you also have to exercise your brain, and your vessel isn't strong enough to be able to handle all of this tremendous wisdom. If the soul just came into the body without forgetting the entire Torah and having to rediscover it, it would overwhelm the senses. Because here we don't even have a developed brain yet, and we already know everything. So it wouldn't work out very well, and so therefore we have to forget it. And if we continue, we see another answer, another reason why we need to forget it in order to then relearn it. In text number 3, Izzy, you want to read that? 6. Sorry.
What is the purpose of teaching the soul? If regardless it will forget, this can be explained according to that which the Al-Sheikh writes regarding the words we said, and give us our portion in the Torah. The explanation of this phrase is linked with the idea that every soul stood at Sinai and received its individual portion of the Torah. This lends insight to the words of the Talmud which state, toil in Torah, and you will find as a person who finds a lost object, for it is indeed his portion. Thus, if the soul wouldn't be taught in the womb, the person would not be able to attain their portion in Torah, even with toil. As Plato writes, a person cannot understand something that he has no previous knowledge of whatsoever, rather only with things that he already had some sort of prior association. However, if the soul wouldn't forget, there would be no effort, and the entire system of reward and punishment would be obsolete. Additionally, if a person wouldn't forget, he would never engage in the material world and would be repulsed by the past environment. The forgetfulness is what allows the world to operate as it does. Thus, the person is taught the entire Torah in the womb, namely his entire portion of Torah. When he emerges, it is forgotten, and afterwards, with effort, he is able to retrieve all his lost goods. For that which he saw and heard leaves an indelible, albeit latent mark. Accordingly, the Talmud concludes that if someone claims that I toiled but did not find, do not believe him, for it is impossible not to be able to retrieve prior knowledge.
So here he spells it out a little bit further, what we're talking about by previously learning the Torah, we're able to reacquire it in this world. Mentions 2 reasons why we have to forget it in order for there to be a concept of reward and punishment, and on a deeper level, if you didn't forget it, it would overwhelm the senses. Similar to the example given by the last commentator, who said that you have the tool and the craftsman, and if the tool is not advanced enough for the craftsman, he's not going to be able to work with that tool. If you have such a powerful soul and he remembers the whole Torah, and here you have a very beginner body, it's not going to work out so well. And so the soul has to forget the entire Torah and then rediscover it in this world. But because it had previously learned it, it's able to rediscover it. It's able to find that the thing that it had learned before again.
That section about, if you didn't forget, you'd be so repulsed by the world that you couldn't handle it. That one rang true.
So when we learn Torah, it's going to cause us to be repulsed by the crass environment. Is that what it's saying?
Well, you can handle it better.
Maybe not, though. Yeah, because
Because you've forgotten it. So, I mean, you'll slowly get it back.
Yeah, but if you achieve, what do you say, is like if you achieve the same level in your lifetime as you had achieved when you were given to it, when it was given to you, your soul before you were born, then, right, he's saying that when you come out, if you had that knowledge still, you wouldn't be able to survive. So how can you then survive if you did get that knowledge as a person? But maybe because you've toiled through and gone through so many things, you see a lot more things. Maybe.
Yeah.
People pull away though as they learn more and more. I mean, you pull away from the crass parts of life.
Yeah, you choose.
It's like the sage in the Talmud. I think it was Rabbi Shammai who said, "I'm going to now go and do kindness with my body. I'm going to go feed myself." He talked about himself and feeding himself in the third person as if, okay, now I'm going to do a favor for my body, but not, I love this and I'm going to, it wasn't. The more a person learns Torah and the more he becomes connected to the spirituality around him, doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to completely escape the world like Aaron's two sons, Nadav and Avihu, who had the klois hanefesh, where the overwhelming love and dissipated from this world, because the godly intent is to live in a physical world, but it's not going to be in the same way as the initial animalistic approach to the crassness of the world, and everything you do is not going to be just out of self-fulfillment that you should enjoy it, but for a deeper, more spiritual purpose.
It does say he would never engage in the material world, as if it doesn't mean that he's always going to engage in the material world.
It's similar to
at the beginning of his life he would engage in it.
When the world. When the world was created, there had to be a certain concealment of godly energy in order for there to be a place for the world to actually exist. And then later there's a godly light that shines through and pierces that darkness. So why couldn't you just create the world with everything minus that ray? Because if there was even a minute ray of that godliness left over, it would, because it's so infinite, you would never have the ability to have a physical world. So that's why there had to be a complete concealment of that godly revelation, godly energy, and then you could have a physical world. Once there is a physical world, when you reintroduce the godliness into the world, it doesn't nullify it from existing absolutely, but it brings the godliness into the world that already exists. So maybe we could say likewise with the soul. If you were to remember the whole Torah as soon as you were born, you would never be able to associate with the world. But because you're born into the world and that's the first thing that you see and the first thing you associate with, and then you introduce the godliness back into it, then you're able to handle it and you're able to remain a human being, a physical person with a body and a soul connected, and not go on a spiritual trip like Aaron's two sons, Nadav and Avihu, who ascended the heavenly fire with their overwhelming passion and inspiration to want to cleave to God. What?
So this reminds me of the old insult about how, gee, you must have been hiding behind the counter when God was handing out the brains. Because the question arises as to whether non-Jewish babies are also taught the entire Torah before they emerge into the world. And let's say you have a husband and wife who are only half Jewish, does they just teach them only part of the Talmud, or does they get the whole sphere anyway? Anything about that?
Are
in
they
here?
born
So-
with a Yiddish cup? Is that what you're asking?
This is a very good question. It's something that we address in the third section, because what you're asking is, we have the Torah. It's translated into 70 languages. You could access it anywhere in the world, and anybody can learn it. You don't have to be Jewish to understand Torah. So what's the point in the Jewish soul learning the Torah before it comes down into this world? If it's anybody could pick up the Torah and learn it. It's not something uniquely Jewish.
Yeah, but doesn't that kind of connect back to Mount Sinai, where the Jews, where we accepted the Torah, our souls accepted the Torah? Does it kind of connect to that? Is that what differentiates it?
So even though we accepted the Torah, we still had to learn it all over again right before coming down into this world.
A person can learn it, but not necessarily feel like they accept it, whereas we accepted the Torah at Mount Sinai, so it's kind of connected to that.
So that gives us a responsibility of the Torah, but it doesn't necessarily answer, well, still anybody can learn it and anybody could understand it the same way.
Yeah, but the question was, do only Jewish babies learn the Torah? Or is everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do only
That question.
a Yiddish cup?
So
Does it
the-
come from the mother?
So a Jewish soul, you're saying a Jewish soul is different from another soul.
Yeah, it's specifically and uniquely the Jewish soul that learns the entire Torah from beginning to end before coming down into this world. And that's partially why we're going to get into that in order for a Jew to feel completely and fully satisfied, and we had talked about previously, we had talked about in the very beginning of the class, where do we find meaning? And even when you find meaning, how do you know that this is it, that this is real? For a Jew, there's a special recipe. For a Jew, certain things that might work for everybody else don't necessarily work for a Jew. I'll give you a parable. There was a guy who grew up in a certain town where they would play this wonderful melody, this sweet tune, wonderful song. And then he went off on his way in his travels in far-off countries, and he would sing this song every once in a while. But after traveling very far, he forgot the entire melody, and he couldn't even remember a few notes. He couldn't remember it at all. And he's constantly on the lookout to try to find his melody, his song. And whatever other song they play for him, it just doesn't do it. It doesn't address that inner bliss that he knows, this is my song. Until finally, after wandering around, he comes home and he hears that same song being played. And he says, oh, that's my song, this is it. And rejoices in hearing his song. And you can just imagine how painful and how big of a struggle it is for that person when he's going from town to town, and as beautiful and wonderful as all the melodies are, it's not his song. It's not that tune that you're looking for until he finally finds it, and then it's the aha moment that this is it. So the soul too is originally a part of God, and it's spending time absorbing that spirituality with in those higher realms, and then it comes down into this world, and different people think of different things as spiritually moving. You can climb to the top of the Himalayas, you could do this meditation, you could try this, you could try that. But for a Jew, you don't find your real fulfillment or satisfaction that this is it. I got it, until you rehear the song of the Torah and mitzvot, which is something that not necessarily the rest of the world needs in order to be able to be fully content. But for a Jew, as much as they'll go from one place to the next and try to find one thing or the other, the Torah and mitzvot are that song of the soul that it's searching for. And when it finds it, then it's, aha, I got it. That's my song.
Like harmonics. When it's the right harmonic, it all resonates.
The Alter Rebbe describes this tremendous process that the soul goes through in coming down into this world. On page 256, text number 8, it says, when the soul is still on high, it's called Achim Vereim, it's called a friend and a brother of the godly presence. And then when the soul is there, it's completely united and one with, or is nothing other than with the presence of God. Then afterwards it says, and you created it, which is once the soul descends to the lower realms, the lower world, and it is known that between the supernal and lower worlds there is a great divide. It's called the parsa, or the curtain, referred to in the Talmud as the paragoid. The purpose of this divide is to enable the soul to become a creation. Or elsewhere, the Alter Rebbe goes on to explain a certain passage that we say in the morning prayers. When we say in the prayers, the soul which you have given me is pure. You created it, you formed it, and you blew it into me. Or those are 3 stages of the process. The words, you blew it into me, convey the idea that the soul is a similar... The soul is similar to a breath that's entirely separate from the matter, similar to a person who blows air, and then it becomes a entirely independent entity. And then, so to the soul, like it says, "Vayipach ba'apay nishmas chayim," he blew into his nostrils a living soul. It's also referring to that breath of God, so to speak, where the soul becomes its own unique entity. However, there's the loftier levels. The step before that is you created it. You created it is already a higher level of the soul when it's still within the thoughts. It's hidden and united with the godliness, as opposed to the stage where you blew it into me, where it's already a separate entity. And the prayer goes on. It specifies 4 terms. It's four stages or items in the descent of the soul into the body, because at the very source, the soul is very lofty and is able to descend so shockingly low into material body. It has to go through a series of contractions and concealments, which in general can be divided into 4 categories. The entire soul doesn't descend into the body, just a small ray of what that soul was, the powerful, the soul the way it was in its very source, is what comes down into this body. So the Alter Rebbe describes this long process of the soul coming from knowing the music and being very intimately involved with hearing its tune, to the slow descent until it comes down to this world where it forgets that godly tune that it had previously heard. Then once a person's born, they're searching to rediscover that tune, that spiritual bliss that they had previously experienced. For the Jew who heard that tune, it's never enough. Any other pursuit doesn't do it for him. It doesn't answer that inner calling. You could the Israelis in particular, after they go to the army, they spend time, few years, going from one country to another, and they're looking for something. They're trying to discover some deeper meaning in life, something that they didn't have, and then they'll go to the furthest corners of the world, go to Kathmandu, and where do they find their meaning? Where do they find their true self? Is when they come back home, whether it's putting on tefillin or hearing the Megillah. I remember I was in Louisiana, and I had flown down there as a student to help out the local rabbi, and he sent us during the day to drive to the mall, where some of the Israelis had some booths in the mall selling Dead Sea products, and we went there with the Shalach Manas baskets and the Megillah, and although they were running far away from Israel to look for something, they're trapped in Israel and they can't earn so much money, or they can't really be who they are. Then they see the Megillah, they say, this is what I was really looking for. This is what I'm really trying to find. It really resonates back with them as far out as you go, and whatever searches a person may make, when they hear that tune that they're familiar with, and they know, this is my tune, then it really hits home and it really resonates. So in addition to it being a intellectual exercise, that in order to be able to physically comprehend the depths of the Torah, which is what the Talmud, or the original commentators on the Talmud, were focusing on. Here the Alter Rebbe is focusing on more of the spiritual rediscovery of the Torah. So the Torah also exists on many stages and planes. Like we said, the soul comes down in this great descent, and the Torah as well has its roots in the very essence of God, and then it descends until we have the 5 books of Moses that we open up here as a manifestation of that godly Torah that exists on a higher spiritual realm. And so you could open up a book of Torah and you could read it, and not necessarily are going to walk away with the same idea of what the Torah is, unless you had a pre-knowledge of what the Torah is coming to say and coming to really teach, which is why we find that the Jewish commentary on the Torah is very unique and very different than anybody else who picks up the Torah and just starts reading it and hearing about this angry God who's coming out to get you, and to all these. If you read the Torah without the Jewish commentary, you miss. You could read the whole Torah and you could even memorize every word, and you could miss the whole Torah. You could have missed the whole picture. So that was one point that the Talmud primarily was bringing across, that by previously learning the Torah, we're given the ability to understand what the Torah is really coming to say and the deeper message of the Torah. And then the Alter Rebbe is explaining it more on a spiritual level, that we're soul searching for spirituality and deeper meaning in life. This is there's a lot of New Age spirituality where people are searching for meaning and depth. This is something that the Jews have been involved in for forever. Since the birth of the Jewish nation, we've always been a very spiritual nation, searching for spirituality and meaning and depth. And being that we have heard that tune before, we're able to rediscover it down here in this world, and when we do hear it, we know, that's it. That was the tune that I was searching for. That is the calling of my soul.
I actually understand that. That actually makes sense to me.
One would assume that Madonna is wasting her time and missing the point by studying the Zohar.
Absolutely. You could say that twice.
Does that mean a non-Jewish soul can never fully understand the Torah if it chose to?
It's
because they would never have received that knowledge.
It's a very interesting question, and as far as I know, or this is the depth of my knowledge, is that we see throughout the world that there are people who are not Jewish who learn the Torah, and they're attracted to it, and they learn it, and they get it, and they even convert to Judaism. It's a possibility. The Torah tells us a person can convert. But when we analyze the wording that the Torah uses, it doesn't say that a non-Jew converts to Judaism. It says a ger sheniskayer, a convert who converts, which is
They were
telling us
they need to come back.
is that for whatever strange reason, this person was born to a non-Jewish mother, but had that soul waiting for them. It's remotely connected, and then once they do go through the conversion, it becomes intimately connected with them. But because they are a ger sheniskayer, they're a convert waiting to convert, waiting to find that, waiting to make that a reality. They have the intuition to be able to understand the reality of Torah in its full depth and.
Quite a loophole there.
What do you mean?
My sister and mom attended a ceremony on Friday and then on Saturday where a couple who met in, I think they're both Italian, and they both had Jewish grandmothers, were raised not Jewish because after the war their families just totally assimilated in mind anything to do with Judaism. Yeah, well, that's a whole other thing. But they decided they wanted to pursue their Judaism and ended up trying to study it. And this is from West Hartford. So the Rabbi Emeritus from the temple in West Hartford ended up somehow they were connected. He was in Israel, in Milan, or wherever they were, and was coaching them, and they came to West Hartford to convert last weekend together, and then the next day they got married. There was a ceremony where the entire community was invited.
Wow.
And it was like this really joyous big deal, and they felt like for them, of all the Jews that were taken away in the Holocaust, they feel like they're giving back more Jews now. They become more Jews to the world. It was like this big deal.
Right.
So it was.
And if you have conversations with converts, you will hear the similar thing. I was searching, and I couldn't find home. I always felt like this is where I really did belong. This is who I really am. And then converting is just actualizing it and making it happen in this real world.
Even as my family going back and forth about this. They heard the song.
Yeah.
They were singing the song.
So now let's read it inside in the Alter Rebbe's word and Alter Rebbe's words on text 10, page 259 or 260, 259 and 60. We can now understand our sage's statement that the fetus learns the entire Torah in the womb and thereafter forgets it after the angel strikes it on the lip at the time of birth. The explanation is as follows. For the awe, dread, and love of God to be readily felt by the person, the light of God must shine upon him. Thus, the soul is taught the entire Torah, for this is the surrounding light containing the potential of love and awe. The spiritual light, the spiritual experience that the soul had already. Afterwards, the soul forgets to enable the person to toil and actively choose good. However, the light of Torah that once shined so brightly and forcefully in his soul before it was completely contained in the body is what empowers and enables him afterward to be able to turn the darkness of the body to the light of God. This is all possible only by virtue of the light of love and awe that once shone from the Torah his soul had previously learned, leaving a mark forever and spurring love and awe even after the soul is in the body. So here he's explaining it. He uses a little bit more of Kabbalistic words in the Hebrew side, but he's talking about that godly experience that the soul had before it came down, and the Torah also in its supernal or spiritual state, what it does and what its purpose is. And being that the soul had previously experienced that, then coming down into this physical world and seeing the Torah as it is, and in a very earthly sense, the earthly Torah that we learn is connected to the higher spiritual levels of the Torah that the soul remembers and associates with and is able to connect to.
It almost reminds me, as I was reading it, I was thinking of like something that is tuned to a frequency. So that's what's happening before it comes in, so that when it hears the frequency, it can pick it up.
Right.
And so you're attuned to a certain frequency, which is what happens before you come down, and then when you hear it, because you've been tuned, you can actually...
And also, when you hear it, you know it's right. How do you know that it's right when you hear it? Maybe...
More static, it's a clear signal. But,
It resonates.
well, you as a musician would understand.
It resonates.
Yeah,
It's just
when you're attuned to it,
when you're
because
attuned
when
to it,
you're
it
not,
resonates.
it's
Or
the
you
way
hear a
it's-
natural harmony.
Yeah.
Follow.
Exactly.
That's what I'm trying.
Because I was thinking of a radio with
Yes.
the tuner and it tunes it very clearly when you're on the right station.
Is
So
neshama?
you're not constantly disagreeing and questioning everything. You just
Oh, I'm
tune.
always going to be doing that.
Is your neshama a Jewish thing? Like just
There's a uniquely Jewish soul, yes.
called the neshama. It doesn't belong.
Every living thing has a soul, and then
But Jews
a
have neshama.
Jew has a uniquely Jewish soul.
In addition or?
In
No.
addition,
In addition. It's a second soul.
yes.
Yeah, double helping.
The trick is,
Actually, according to the reincarnation theory, there are 3 categories of soul.
yeah, there are definitely different levels of soul, and that's beyond the scope of the class. The Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chai, Yechida are 5 levels of the soul, generally speaking about the Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, and then the...
You're just showing off. man.
Yeah, really. Just show.
No, that's something
That's
that
great.
I
I
studied a
love
lot.
when you just go deeper.
Never stood up for some,
Chai, Yechida.
In Tanya, you would study that a lot.
In the bathroom.
Back then.
I don't know what that is. I keep seeing it up
The
there.
map.
It's a map.
The map of your soul, GPS to
It's
life.
like
It's a
the,
very colorful soul, I must say.
It's a poster.
well, the Tanya, you'd say that's like it's like maybe the guidebook. I don't know. It's something. It's really it explains kind of Hasidus.
It's the instructional booklet for the soul. It
To understanding the soul.
not just
To operate the soul.
not just to understand the soul, but to as an owner's manual how to work it, and it's really even though the first 10 or 20 chapters are informational and not instructional. It's in order to be able to understand the instructions, you have to know a little bit about the construct of the soul. You can't just say like it'd be like a doctor. Yeah, a doctor who just tells you, yeah, you're not feeling well. It's something inside. It's something, but where? What in particular? So in order to remedy the soul, you have to learn a little bit about the workings of the soul and different levels of the soul.
It's pretty complex.
These classes are Torah.
Yes.
Then there's a separate thing on that.
So the Tanya is also it's a part of the Torah. The Tanya explains the how to go about living a Torah life in a very crass and physical world. What do you do about depression? It's the best psychology book ever written. It's how do you deal with other problems in life, or how do you
It's not
palpably
like
attain?
It's not like reading.
Yeah, it's really-
It doesn't sound
No,
like
every chapter is
It sounds fascinating.
the Tanya, the book of the Tanya. It's the magnum opus of the Alter
you
Rebbe.
can spend
So-
so much time on
So
it.
is this like a table of contents? Is
It's
that
a
better?
summary of each chapter, and it's divided and color coded by sections, because the first 10 chapters about this, and then the next 10 chapters about that, and so
And it's good because even when you're doing it, you can like look back and be like, okay, this is what I've gone through, and this is where I'm
Have
heading
you
and
studied
stuff.
this too?
so it's an
I'm
outline.
studying it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm learning it now.
I've read it
All
here.
Torah,
And
Rebbe, did
Yeah.
he completely do that on his own, like a commentary of the Torah?
Well, he didn't write the map, but he wrote the Tanya. Yeah.
Found
So that he wrote, but as a
Yes.
as a commentary, or just as a
as a Hasidic book to be a guide to how to navigate the soul and how to deal with.
Just with the soul and I mean,
Just a lot.
How to implement that into your physical life as well. How to merge the two. The soul has three garments: thought, speech, and action, which are how the soul relates to the
I have
world.
the set 5, and I read it, and I ask the rabbi questions. He was learning the other day, and I was learning with the rabbi on the phone.
The first time I came over here, Moshe, I was very reluctant, let's just say. And at one point I said something about, I've never studied.
I remember when you were outside. Standing outside, took you a while to come in.
Moshe was sitting over there and he's like, how do you call yourself a Jew if you've never studied the Torah?
Right.
Because I'm a Jew,
Because you're a Jew.
But it's interesting.
Right.
Just,
There's no prerequisite though. You're a Jew. You're born a Jew.
Well, I definitely consider myself a Jew, but I realize just how little I know about what it is that I am.
Me too, but we
Which
are
is why I
Jews.
keep showing up, regardless of...
He said it in an inviting way.
Not really.
Well, I mean,
No, it wasn't really all that much.
what are you doing?
Well, we'll get back to him
Oh,
on that.
that's
Yeah.
true. It just scare me off.
I remember Sarah, you're like,
Stereo
finally
wink is
came,
as
you're like,
good
you
as
must be at
another.
the sales.
A wink
Why
is
do you
as good as
outside?
another.
No, I still
No, that's what we're trying to say.
Not going in. I'm not
I remember,
going in.
I was here. I was inside.
That's what, we didn't say, how could you be a Jew if you didn't say it? We say, come in, taste it, just try it out, you'll like it, It's okay. So anyways, the last point is just to answer a technicality of why on the lip, and
That's interesting.
and Kabbalistically, the uniqueness of a human being is the fact that he's able to talk. We have 4 categories of species in general. If you wanted to really generalize all the species in this world, you have the domim, which is the inanimate, like rocks and mud and dirt, whatever, the vegetational life, the animal life, and then what we call the medaber, the speakers. What makes a human unique is the fact that he's able to intellectually communicate. And so the striking on the lip in particular is significant because here we're talking about the soul merging with the body. Slapping something is like an allegory to putting these two things together. We wanted to take the soul and slap it together with the body, and so we did that specifically on the lip, on the place that makes the human unique.
So you breathe life then, too. The wind.
What are the implications for other species such as dolphins and whales and chimpanzees that have forms of communication, sort of by means and whatnot? Would that have any sort of connection to the highest species such as humans?
So the real concept of medaber is more than just the ability to talk. I mean, you can understand that a parrot talking is not a medaber that we're talking about, and even primitive forms of
It's not the divine.
of communication. The dog very clearly communicates with its human master, and you have other nonverbal communications, and for sure the whales and animals they have a certain level of intelligence to be able to communicate messages from one to another, but it's not the same thing as a human intellect, which is a whole different plane. And that's the what?
Prefrontal cortex.
What is that?
Thinking brain.
So
that's and it expresses itself in this world through your that extra intellect expresses itself in the world through your speech, through
So you've got the rock, you've got the plants, you've got the animals, you've got the humans.
humans.
love
Yes.
What comes after the human?
What do you mean?
Well, I'm just
Those are the 4 species of life on this world,
in this one.
okay.
And then you ascend
and
to
each one of those 4 categories has its correspondence in the spiritual realms. The 4 worlds, Atzilus, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya, correspond to the 4 levels of Damas Me'achai Medaber.
Which are
The inanimate, vegetation, animal, and human. So, Atzilus, compared to Bria, one spiritual world compared to the other spiritual world, is like a human compared to an animal. And then compared to vegetation, compared to inanimate. The lowest world that we're in is on the vast spectrum of things. The inanimate level compared to the vegetation and animal and human level in the spiritual realms, in the spiritual world. And everything that exists in this physical world is descended from the spiritual sources in each one of those respective worlds. And so, in conclusion, we spoke about searching for that tune, looking for that song, and then when you do hear it, you get that aha moment. You get the eureka, or arcada.
the Arcada moment.
Where you find it when you do hear the Torah and you understand a authentic Torah teaching. It's something that resonates with the person. It's something that every Jew will say, aha, this is it, this is my thing, this is what I'm looking for. As difficult as that may be, living in a very physical world, so when a person does find it, you know it. It's there. You taste it. It's very real because you've had it before, because you know what it is. When you do find it, when you do experience it, you know it's real. You know that's it.
Because you remember.